This is Will Montgomery, former Washington Redskins center.
Yo, what's good, folks? This is Trey Johnson, the headbanger, yo, and you're listening to Mess Hall with Rally Captain and Tailgate Ted. Word.
What's going on, Rally? How you doing, man?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. I wish the skies would clear, but I understand why it's so hazy because of what's going on in Canada. But
yeah,
hey,
Canadians.
Man, let's get it, brother.
I hear you, man. It was actually, I was out at minicamp today. I keep wanting to call it training camp. I was at a minicamp today. And if I had $1 for every person that told me, are you cooking out in the parking lot? Is this smoke because of you? Dude, I could have bought dream seats. I mean, you know, it would have been nice, man. Because if you would have thought that everybody was working at the Improv this weekend, the way they're just all trying to be comedians. But yeah, it's pretty hazy out here. And for those that aren't in the area, we got listeners in Spain, man. And I'm guessing they speak English because my Spanish is no bueno. But you know, for those that don't know,
español.
Oh, yeah. We've got a bunch of the wildfires up in Canada. All that smoke is coming down here in the DC area. And I don't know if you saw some of the pictures with Josh Harris in New York today. Like New York's getting it really bad. It looks like it's orange out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of reminds me of that's the way it looks here, but not as bad. I mean, it's really hazy. It really is. So anyway, what happened besides the questions about food at camp? Talk to us, brother, because I wasn't there and I want to know.
I hear you, man. It was a last minute invite from the team, and I appreciate them sending that. They had a couple sweet people because the day was Sweet Holder Day.
Okay.
And they had some sweet people, I guess, that maybe have got respiratory issues. And long story short, they had an open spot for me and got a chance to get out there. And there was not that many people. So today probably would have been the best day if you want to get autographs. I stopped getting autographs a long time ago. So I'm more the guy that just kind of sits there, and I had my notebook with me, and, you know, I was taking notes and just watching film. And man, it was interesting to see. And we talked last week during voluntary workouts that Chase wasn't there, Montez wasn't there, and Charles Leno wasn't there. Well, now that they can get fined and it's going to cost them some cash, guess who showed up?
Okay. But we kind of knew that, though, bro. We kind of knew that. I mean, we knew that, as we said, even though it goes against the fans, it's voluntary, and the fans want to see everyone there, and even the coach wants to see everyone there. But now, where the rubber meets the road, start getting his own pockets. Here we are. So, what stood out? What stood out to you off the break? What stood out to you?
Eric Bieniemy. I mean, I've heard you talk about seeing him in person when you were out there for rookie practice, and other fans talk about him and other podcasts I listen to. But just seeing him in person and his intensity and his attention to detail. I mean, it's well documented last year, receivers weren't running the same depth in routes. One guy would break off his route at 2 yards. One guy would break it off at 3 yards, just different stuff. And there was no consistency. Bieniemy was getting in the guys' asses, man. And this was one quote I wrote down here today. And I won't say who he was talking to, but he said, "You've been here long enough to know that. Get your ass back in there and do it right." And this was to a player that has been here for some time, and they're going through installations. So some of these plays, you know, these guys know when they see. And this one guy he was yelling at, this was actually at Jahan. He said, "Get your ass up the field." And Jahan was doing a end around, and he broke it off the wrong way, and he made him run that play back over again. And just seeing Bieniemy's, you know, just knack for wanting everything perfect. There are fans that are complaining about it, and I'll never understand that. But it is a nice change of pace to see that there is someone that's actually holding him accountable.
Oh, yeah, man. And it goes back to what I said in the beginning. I don't know the last time we've had an assistant head coach that carries weight. We've had assistant coaches and things of that nature, but when it comes down to it, and you've got the gravitas, if you will, the cojones that you're putting this on your back, you want to make it sure that everything is right, because even though for us, let's face it, this is an audition for Eric. And one thing that gets me out of all this is there's so many moving pieces and parts that go along to being an OC that he can spot it. And that's what got me from the first day that I saw it. I mean, the man's back was almost turned, but yet he knew what was going on over his right shoulder and was getting people's butt. I'm like, how did he see that? I didn't even see it. So does he have mirrors or something? I mean, is somebody in the headset talking to him and saying, "Up, he was off 2 steps, get in his butt"? I don't know, but the fact of the matter is this, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but I like the fact that accountability it seems like it's finally in the house.
It really does. And, Ron was just standing there, had his whistle, just kind of had his arms crossed like he always does. During 7-on-7s, 11-on-11s, it was Bieniemy's game. He was doing everything he wanted to. The one thing that was kind of odd was he was maybe 30, 40 yards away from the play, behind the guys, just kind of watching like an end zone view, but he's field level with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would kind of wondering how, just like you're saying, how is he noticing all this? How is he getting all this? But he's yelling at guys to finish the play, run routes, get proper depth. He yelled at one of the tight ends because he didn't pause when he was supposed to pause on a particular route and then kind of stutter and go. I mean, just the little tiny things. And there's so many nuances. And they actually asked Jahan Dotson about it. And he said, well, you can't worry about Bieniemy just yelling at you or being that guy. You want to do it right and you want to get it right. And I think really the track record is this is what he did with the Chiefs. And this is what it took for the Chiefs to become champions. And if this is what it's going to take for us to be winners, then yeah, let's do it. Let's put up with it and let's go for it.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. One thing that you said that I've always tried to tell people this, and I've even tried to tell you this, but it doesn't really go over too well with you. You said that he was about 30 to 40 yards away, and he almost had like an end zone view. Well, who sits in the end zone?
Oh, you love your view. I get it.
And I said I can see the play developing amazingly. That I could be an offensive coordinator day of game.
But you're also a little bit higher up. I mean, you got your dream seats. I get that. But he is literally standing on the field. And I don't know how tall the man is, but he's 5. Okay, so this is Wikipedia. Take it what you will. He's 5'7". He ain't that tall. So
but if you know what you're what you're looking for, height doesn't matter.
No, you're right. You're right.
And that's all I'm saying. Being that far away at that angle, he knows what he's looking for. He knows what he sees, and he can pounce on it. No different than all I was saying is from my seat, I know what I see, and I know it looks good and what doesn't, and I can see the play developing. That's all.
Yeah, he was pissed off at Jahan because on that end around that he came through, he was supposed to run it right off the tackle's hip. Okay. And he bumped it too far outside and got on his ass for not running it right. And now is when you need to make sure you get it right, because you can't afford to make these mistakes in game and make these adjustments. So
right.
I am excited for that because we finally have, and not that Scott Turner wasn't a good coordinator, but I went to every training camp last year except for maybe 2. I never saw Scott doing this and standing there right behind the guys. And I'm sure he was vocal in meetings and things like that, but never on the field. You don't have to chastise guys. Coach Gibbs didn't get in your ass if you didn't do what was right. He had other guys to do it. But when Coach flipped out, and he never used a bad word, but when he almost did, he reminds me of Ned Flanders when he curses from The Simpsons. When he almost did, you knew to take it serious. And that's what some fans are concerned about is, when's it going to get old? The guy that cries wolf all the time, after a while, it just kind of starts to fall on deaf ears and you become numb to it. But I don't think it's going to be that way with this team and with these players.
So the question that I have for you was, I wasn't here when Joe Gibbs first got here, but maybe you were. So when he first got here, was he yelling possibly the way Eric was? And from what I know of Joe, was toward the later part of the years, he didn't have to. He didn't have to do any yelling. So do you think that maybe it's because this is his first year and he's trying to get things going, and then maybe his second or third year he won't yell? Do you think that maybe is what it is?
I think that this is Bieniemy's MO, period. And going to
Okay.
Coach Gibbs, and I know I'm old, but I'm not that old. I mean, I remember going to training camp with my pops, but I
Yeah.
was just so excited to be there. I didn't pay attention to,
Gotcha.
what was going on, but hearing stories from, I remember used to travel with the team and I would hang out with Larry, Michael, and Sonny and Sam, and they would just tell stories about practice and things like that. And Coach really didn't get into guys. Like Pettibone got into guys.
Okay.
Bugle got into guys. He had other guys that were, his henchmen, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
But when Gibbs really needed to get the guy's attention, and I remember hearing a story from Darryl Green at one point, he flipped over the Gatorade table in the locker room during halftime because the team came out and just played completely flat.
Mhm.
And they said their one memory is Coach never did that. And when he did, they were all waiting for him to curse. And I think he said dag nabbit or something like that. But everybody's got their own style. And,
Right.
to me, I think this is Bieniemy's style because, we talked about it. He has gotten into arguments with Patrick Mahomes out there in Kansas City. And I just feel that some players can take it the wrong way. But during his introductory press conference, one thing that stood out to me was a clip that the Commanders had of McLaurin meeting Bieniemy saying, "Don't be afraid to coach us hard." I'm paraphrasing it.
Gotcha.
And I've heard that from multiple players that
Mhm.
they are looking forward to Bieniemy coaching them up and doing what it takes. And if the players are truly receptive, it's Wednesday, June 7th, the second day of minicamp. We'll see once it's August and they've been at camp and in pads and full practice hitting each other for some time. But right now,
Yeah.
the second day of minicamp, the guys seem eager. They seem hungry. But one thing that does concern me is it is a new system.
Mhm.
And hearing the verbiage, Sam Howell said it last week during his press conference. It's very wordy. And I heard him yell out, I guess it's based on animal names: zebra,
Yes.
tiger, Mustang, hippo, things like that. And I'm trying to piecemeal from the different words he's saying, okay, what does that mean? What does this mean personnel wise? And I'm sure we'll get to figure some of that stuff out down the road, especially when Logan Paulson does some of his different film breakdowns and things like that on Instagram. But I just hope that Sam and the receivers can get it. And I don't know. They're losing practices because of what happened last year when they had, I think it was OTAs last year. A couple guys went to the ground. They got in trouble for that. And now this air quality thing, believe it or not, I was actually worried today they were going to move practice to the bubble because DC declared it a code red day and they move it to the bubble. I don't think fans can go in there or media because you got 90 players plus coaches and you can't get a ton done inside that practice bubble. So I'm hoping, they get a chance to actually practice. And then next week, when they come back, we go back to voluntary, not mandatory. So who's going to show up next week?
Yeah. Who's going to be on vacation? Not good. Not good. But the good thing that we do have, Ted, is what we've heard is, and we all feel this way, our defense is pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm not going to say it's the best, but it's pretty good. And we've always said that we need to be able to put points on the board. And if Eric can come in and Coach Bieniemy, because I don't know him like that. So I'm going to say Coach Bieniemy, Coach B-E-B, however we want to say it. If he can come in and give us 10 extra points, 12 extra points, that speaks volumes. And so the guys, here's the thing, fans, we don't play the game. So any fan that says, oh, he's yelling too much, is in one ear and out the other. I don't really care about that. What I care about are the guys being receptive to the yelling. Is he, as my coach used to tell me, I'm about to put a fire under your butt, boy. That's what my coach would tell me. He's an old country boy. I'm about to put some fire under your butt. And hearing him yell at me, or the different coaching tactics that he would use, and sometimes he even kick me in the butt. I'm not gonna say that pros do it, but I mean, hey, it was an attention getter, and so it worked. So whatever needs to work for these high-paid athletes to fully comprehend what he wants from them, do it. Because at the end of the day, we don't care. Well, I don't care about yelling, and I think that if we win hypothetically 12 games, that these fans that are saying they don't like it now, I don't think they'll be saying that.
Oh, definitely not.
Well, okay. So that's what I'm saying. In one ear, out the other. Let the man do what he's got to do, because you guys aren't coaches.
Yeah, and we averaged 18.9 points a game last year. If we can get 10 more, I mean, that would be unreal.
Yeah.
And we'd definitely be well on our way to, postseason, and who knows after that. It's going to be interesting. The one thing I did notice today was no Curtis Samuel. So I looked all over social media. I talked to a couple reporters that were out there, and I asked them what was going on with 4. And first I couldn't find him because I forgot to change his number. Then I realized, because
that's right,
sitting right there, when they were doing 7-on-7, 11-on-11, all the guys were lined up in front of me. Like, why is the guy not going out? Turned around, it was Curtis. So not making a big deal out of it at all. It was just alarming to me that Curtis didn't participate in any of the team drills. I don't know if he did any of the individual wide receiver stuff, because that was on another side of the field, and I was watching the running backs and some other guys. But I'd be curious what's going on. And one thing, he stayed after practice, and all the fans left and went down the walkway to go get autographs. I stayed to see who stuck around to get some extra reps in. He took off his jersey, so unless you were looking at his face or knew what he looked like, you wouldn't know it was him. And he waited for one of the guys there, one of the team guys. I don't think he was a coach, but he was someone that works for the team, to just throw him the ball. And he was kind of standing in place and having the ball thrown to him, and did a couple of movements, almost like he wanted to use the jugs machine, but that was on another field that was farther away. And then he just caught a couple of passes, and then he walked all the way around to that concrete field with that AstroTurf and back up the long way to the locker room.
Didn't want to answer questions, huh?
Didn't want to talk to any fans at that point. And you talk about body language all the time. It just seemed odd to me, man, that he did that and went out of his way to just go back. And I hope it's nothing. And it's June 7th. It's the second day. But just given his track record, I'm a little bit on a scale from 1 to 10, maybe at like a 3 or a 4, concerned on, is he going to be okay? This is also a contract year for him, I believe. So he needs to get his butt out there.
Wow, man. I'm going to throw up a quick little prayer for my man. Hopefully it's nothing. And I'll say that. And we're just going to keep that in our mind, that it's nothing. He might be one of these guys who doesn't take well to yelling, like Petey on remember the Titans. You know, he just doesn't take well to that. So maybe he was in his feelings. Who knows? But we're gonna hope that nothing is wrong with him, and hope that he can, if there is nothing wrong, he can get his mind in the game, and if there is something wrong, that he can get the treatment that he needs to be able to succeed. Because let's face it, right now, these are the building blocks that everyone needs to be able to understand these plays. So
definitely. And he's hopefully watching and getting mental reps. And who did look good was Bieniemy, because you saw, I mean, they're calling in 1, 2, 17, and just guys coming in and off in between reps and getting them out there. I mean, we all know that Bieniemy, or some, not all of us, but some people might know that Bieniemy and Sam Howell played together in Carolina.
Yes, sir.
He's got that instant rapport with them. And I was talking to Rick Snyder, who we've had on the show before, Snide Remarks on Twitter. I mean, Rick was also commenting on how Bieniemy looked good. It's just, where's he going to get his reps? Where's he going to get his snaps? And if Curtis isn't out there, I'm hoping that young man gets a chance to prove that he should be out there, because there is an obvious connection with him and 14.
Love to hear that as well. And I can't wait until the pads come on. That's what I'm looking forward to. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy the fact of fans being able to see the players right now. But in the grand scheme of things, this is just, but let us go to maybe that second day of pads, that third day of pads after the body's had a couple of days of some true hitting. Then we'll be able to see, did they exactly learn? Did they in fact learn the playbook, or were they going through the motions? And I'm sure that's when you will really hear what Coach has to say about it.
And that actually came up during Rivera's press conference today. I want to say it was maybe Sam Fortier asked him, they're not having any run plays. I know Craig Hoffman asked, you guys are passing the ball a ton. We're not really seeing a ton out of the run game. Well, the guys don't have pads on, right? And okay, you'll see a draw here or something there, but not really a ton. So not really hitting each other. And on top of that, you've got a young quarterback. He's not a rookie, but he's only started one actual game. And this is a new offense with a ton of verbiage that has to get guys lined up in the right spots. So let's make sure he can get these pass plays down, because from a run perspective, shouldn't be as hard, shouldn't be as complicated. And John Allen actually, and I think John Kime mentioned this on his podcast. I know JP Finley mentioned it on his show on 106.7 The Fan. I think it was last week or it might have been this week, but regardless, the offense was actually having a good day. And John Allen, and I'm paraphrasing here, basically said, calm down. The defense doesn't have any pads on right now, and we're not rushing you guys. So let's be real here. So just trying to put guys in their place, like what you're seeing. And it always, fans will see like a long bomb and stuff like that on social media. The Commanders media team, great. They'll just show an over-the-shoulder catch by receiver, whatever. They're not showing that he's catching that against air. They're not showing that, the offense is lining up literally against other offensive players during that drill, and no one is actually covering that receiver. So temper your expectations until you see the entire thing, and until both sides are able to really go at it full bore.
Right. The way that he's supposed to be able to check you. I mean, let's face it, this is an installation process. You've got to be able to, first off, see the play in writing. Second, you've got to be able to see the play on the field. Third, you've got to be able to activate what you have learned. And these are just the steps that they've got to take, because now Eric needs to, Coach needs to be able to say, hey, like he did with Jahan, no, when you do this play, you've got to be 10 yards before you make that break, or you got to be 7 yards, or whatever it is. They draw it up on paper. Okay, now they've studied it. Now they're on the field. They've got to execute it. So, and you really don't want anyone trying to defend you truly, if you will, on something like that, because otherwise, no one's going to learn.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. And some of the fans behind me were saying, well, why are they lining up against other offensive guys? It's basically the first string lining up against like the fourth string offense. Mm-hmm. And the other guys weren't really moving. They were literally just standing there to give Sam kind of a pre-snap read on where he should go based upon what the defense is doing. Then you had a coach go in motion with Jahan. And at that point, you had Terry or another guy call out something. One said 0, and just different stuff. And then they hike the ball. The defensive guys, the fake defensive guys, will somewhat move, but not really. You're not getting any pass rush. And he's just trying to see where he should throw that ball. And a couple times, Bieniemy said, yep, good call there. He liked where he actually threw, he's got 5 options in that play. He liked his second option that time. He liked his third option that time. And it'll be interesting to see. And I know we keep harping on it, what actually happens. But another thing that was interesting to me was the defense. I mean, Montez, he had a couple balls he batted down today. He looked really good. Chase, obviously, we mentioned wasn't there. He looked damn good. He actually looked explosive. He's got the brace on, and he did a interview with the media yesterday, and he basically said to the effect of, he's keeping the brace on, but it's a night and day difference. My confidence, my strength, everything. And they talked to him about his fifth-year option not being exercised, basically using it as motivation. And it reminds me a little bit of Gilbert Arenas. I don't know if you were a Wizards fan when Gil was here, but he would have press clippings and different stuff like that in his locker room to motivate him. And hey, if this is what it takes to motivate Chase to actually be worth that second pick in the draft, then so be it. Let's see it and see what he can do.
Yeah. Like you, man, whatever it takes. Some people need that extra motivation. Others don't. I clearly believe that that motivation was needed for Deron, because Deron came back and showed us. Now, if we can get that same production or even better out of Chase, oh man, once again, look out, guys. But I'm not going to put the cart before the horse. These are the fundamentals and building blocks that we've got to go through so that we can see what we're working with. So I'm looking forward to it, man.
It was also good to see, and I'm surprised no one really made a big deal out of it, because last year they did. Warren Sapp was back out there. So those that don't know or didn't listen to us last year, first, shame on you. But second, Sapp came out. He's good friends with Coach Z, Scanina, and he came out last year, and they made a big deal out of Sapp working with these young defensive linemen. Well, he was back out there today, and you could see him, and actually a couple times saw him making hand gestures to Chase and some of the other guys when they were out there. And I don't know what he was doing with those gestures or what he meant at all, but to have someone of that pedigree, of that talent, of that mold, and that experience, I mean, it's nothing but positives for these guys.
Well, I think last year I kind of balked on Sapp being out there. I think I said, at the end of the day, okay, yeah, he's out there right now, but when they come back in pads, will he be out there? Because if he isn't, then they would have forgotten basically everything they taught him. So, and the other coach would have been implementing what he wants to see out of him. So, I think I said, if he's going to be here, let him be here. But realistically, just for minicamp, nah, I think that was my.
I'm curious if part of it's enforcing fundamentals. John Kine was talking about on his podcast. You didn't see any of those stutter step moves that Chase was famous for his second year. Things like that he seemed to get out of his game. And, he was practicing in Colorado. I think it was Colorado, regardless.
Yeah.
When he didn't show up, he and Montez, and I think Von Miller and a couple other guys were, practicing together out in, I think it's Colorado, just doing different stuff out there. And to me, I disagree with you a little bit. If you have a Hall of Famer giving you tips, I'm going to remember what that guy said. If you have Joe Blow guy coming in here giving you tips that you're never going to see again, might not worry as much. But if you got a guy that is, someone that you watched growing up, you're going to remember it. And hopefully that's the case. But the defensive line did have their best season together last year when Sapp was there. And I think a majority of that is because they let go of their previous defensive line coach. There was a feud between that defensive line coach and some of the existing players and former players. Matt Ioannidis had an issue, and it came out that he wanted to be traded during, I want to say it was a 2020 season, whatever the season was before he left us. He wanted to be traded because he did not get along with, I think it was Sam Mills at that point. And when Coach Scanina took over, a lot of the players took better to Scanina because he was in the trenches with them and literally lines up during drills and shows you what to do. The guy is a physical freak. He's just a monster. He looks like he could play right now. If we had a guy go down, he looks like he could put some pads on and go right in.
Yeah.
And, there's something to be said about that.
Well, I will say that when I was an instructor, one of the first things that, what we would have to do to the new guys coming on board is we'd tell them what we wanted, what we expected out of them. And then they'd say, oh, that can't be done. And then it will take an instructor to actually show them that it can be done, to bestow that confidence inside of them to be able to do that. So, okay, I got you. I got you. I'll bite a little bit off of Sap, but at the same time, I'm still going to keep my druthers and say, hey, man, come July, I think that they would have kind of forgotten what.
Well, if he's back
said.
in July, I'll let you know. And if I get a chance to talk to him when he's walking out one of these days, I'll see if I can, get him on the horn for you and tell him to talk to you about why he's important for us.
Well, if you're there, best believe, brother, I'm going to be there. So we can chop it up together and bounce this off of him and see what he says.
So I was talking to Rick Snyder about training camp and when those dates are going to be. One thing I did find out is it's not going to be a lottery. They learned their mistake last year and they're moving on from it. It's going to be open to fans.
Love it.
Those fans wondering, camp is not going to be restricted.
Good.
There's some things I don't want to get into because I know it's not public knowledge yet, but it's going to be a better training camp for fans out in Ashburn. It's not going to be like it was last year where everyone's just sitting at a grass field and you had 2 food trucks out there. And in my opinion, one was way too expensive. Get ready for a better fan experience out in Ashburn. And they're preparing for more fans to be there. It's on us to prove them right and actually show up. And I can't wait to get out there, man.
Well, one of the biggest things or complaints that we heard last year is, hey, I really wanted to be here, but I didn't have an invite, so I couldn't come. The question that I have is it public knowledge of the date yet? Because some people need to take off of work, like moi. I need to be able to take off of work so that I can be there that first day. Is it public knowledge yet, or are we still waiting for them to release it?
So it's not public knowledge yet, but when I was talking to Rick, he said it was 5 days before the first game, before the first preseason game. So to me, that's going to be July 31st, which is a Monday, because I'm trying to see when the first preseason game is, but, just kind of going from there. And if he's right, then I think on the 5th day is actual when they put pads on. Because the first couple of days, it's just, hats. After that, I think they'll maybe put shells on and then they'll take a break and then they'll put pads on. So if you guys do plan on going out and taking off, go then, because you'll get a chance to actually see some hitting and some other stuff. And not that it's boring. When they're out there today, they, literally just had helmets on, nothing else. You still get to see some stuff, but I want to hear those pads hitting. I want to hear those, the offensive line, the defensive line going at it, just because, that's what I played back in the day.
Man, see, I can't wait. But, I think that you're just happy, even though they're not in pads at this point, you're just happy to be back around NFL football. That's what I think it boils down to. So the Harris group is in New York. Hopefully, fingers crossed that he was able to make some changes to what they asked him of, and we can go forward with completing the sale of this team.
Yeah, so Josh Harris was out there today at 2:00 with Mitchell Rails. They showed up separately, which I don't know why that matters, but people felt like putting that out there. And he met with the 8-owner finance committee to make the requested adjustments to his deal. And good news is we have somewhat of a date that things have to happen. Because on May 12th, they entered into that exclusivity agreement with Dan Snyder. So no one else can bid. Harris has to figure out all this stuff with the NFL Finance Committee. And there is a estimated date for that exclusivity to expire. Some say it's 60 days, some say it's 90 days. So the NFL is working to get this done with that in mind. There actually is a breakup fee if the deal is not ratified that Harris has to pay Dan. So they want to get this taken care of. And I don't know what 60 days from May 12th is, but just do the math, ask Alexa or Google or whatever, you can figure it out. I'm
July
hoping
something.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it'll be taken care of. And maybe by the first preseason game that we have, something will be done. And, I don't want to name the employees that were out there that I talked to today, but man, everyone is just waiting with bated breath. The word that was used was, we're in limbo right now. And everyone is just waiting for this to get done. And a lot of the fans that were out there today just felt the same way. And there's an electricity. I stopped at Wegmans leaving because they had that Buy Dan beer. I haven't been able to chance to get a hold of it. And when I went in there, who was it? One of the guys told me that they had a pallet there 48 hours ahead of time. It was down to just a couple of them left, man. And
wow.
A lot of people are just the second this thing drops and it's finally done. I mean, the NFL, they're talking about potentially doing this remotely and coming to a vote or having to come back together in person. All these guys got private jets. Who gives a damn unless you're the whole green thing. You don't want these private planes flying back and forth, whatever. But let's just get this thing done so we can all go celebrate. And then hopefully, talk to these guys about some of the improvements we need. And did you hear that Wes Moore was on talking about Maryland wants a stadium there and PG County is willing to give you money? So let's take advantage of it.
Yeah, I did hear that. And he hasn't wavered based off of what they've been saying. So the biggest question is, okay, realistically, where would you be able to move that metro? I mean, that's one of the biggest down things that's everybody talks about is that metro. So if you can figure out a way to get that closer, which I don't know if they can or can't, but if they can, good. If not, we'll keep pushing. And they've got a boatload of money. And the good thing is what he said, and I have to take his word for it, and what we've heard prior to this is, regardless if you guys are coming or not, this is what we're doing for this area, for that particular area. That speaks volumes to me. So, hey, look, we don't need you, but this is what we're going to do anyway. We'd like to have you, but we're going to do this anyway. Everyone still wants to know about RFK. That's what everybody wants to know. Will it happen? RFK is almost just as important as the owner when the owners be taking over. It really is.
I just don't see it happening timeline wise, because we got to worry about Congress. We got to worry about the DC City Council and all this other stuff. But this is a quote from the interview that he did with B. Mitch and Finley yesterday. He said, when you look at places like the Navy Yard, it's an interesting and compelling model. You want something where people can go and make it a destination spot. You want it to say we can go to a game, but there are concerts there and hotels and restaurants. There are things that you can do to turn it into an experience and not just a singular event. As far as I can see, we're the only place that's really advocating for a Commanders new stadium. We are committed to keeping them in Prince George's County, but we really want this to be a destination that people in the community can benefit from, but people outside of the community will want to come to. And that just goes back to what you were saying. They are making this investment. We talked about it. The people that built One Loudoun are supposedly putting $1 billion with a B into improving PG County and putting these venues out there. Right now, I'm sure that Fanatic Sportsbook out there is dying because there's nothing else out there. I don't know that for a fact, but I do know that it's not doing as well as some of the other locations. But if you actually have other things around it, which hopefully, selfishly, this is where I want the stadium to go, because I think RFK is going to take too long. And I'm damn sure not going to be going out to Loudoun. But it was nice and refreshing to hear the Maryland governor talk about it publicly, because we've heard, think in the prospectus, Virginia, we think is going to give us more money that Josh Harris had compiled for his other investors. The one thing, though, that was kind of frustrating to hear Governor Moore say was he's a Ravens fan through and through. Like, you could have left that part out, man. I didn't need to have that part in your whole bid process. We know you are. It's fine. But you're trying to court the Commanders. Hush on the purple.
See, and I'd rather him be honest. I'd rather him be honest, and I'd rather him go ahead and say, I am, but, or I am, however, the same way he did. I am, but we're not talking about the Ravens right now. We're talking about the Commanders, and we want to do this for the Commanders. Don't worry about my Ravens. We got our stuff taken care of. We're trying to get the Commanders taken care of and bring it up to our level. I can get behind that.
I hear you. And it's just, I've seen Governor Hogan out at Commanders games, and he goes to the Ravens games a lot more. It's a better fan experience. I'm stating that as a fact. Going to that stadium, M&T versus FedEx Field, and everything they've got going into it. But I know that the team is making some improvements, and they're trying to do what they can. It just comes down to winning on the field. But one thing a lot of fans have been wondering is that joint practice with the Ravens. How do we get access to that? What do we have to do? So this is what I was told from a couple of Ravens fans and some other people who are going to remain nameless. Last year, the Ravens did a lottery. They had fans anywhere. You can sign up on a website. So technically, anybody can sign up on the website. The problem is only 300 people got to go. You're going to have a hell of a lot more than 300 people in the DMV signing up for this lottery, especially now that it's not the Ravens versus a no-name team from Timbuktu. It's the Ravens versus the Commanders, Battle of the Beltway practice, and we're all going to want to go. So I'm not going to hold my breath that I'm going to win the lottery and actually get a chance to see that practice, but it will be good to see them play each other at FedEx Field under the lights. I think it's Monday night.
Monday night. That's right. I will be there, brother.
Well, I'll be right there with you, man. And hopefully these guys can redeem themselves against the last time they played the Ravens, because that did not go too well.
No, it didn't. But at the same time, I told you, brother, it's building blocks. And that's all I want to see is improvement from day to day, week to week, month to month. And I hear the music playing, so it lets me know that this is going to be drawing another edition of DMV Mess Hall to an end. Oh, but before we go, if you're still on the fence about coming out west, Commanders versus the Rams, go to my website, www.sbevents.net. I've got a great package for you guys. I don't think anybody is doing a stadium tour. It has transportation to the stadium that has, anything that you need, it's there for you to take in LA. A heated pool, outside pool, rooftop bar.
In December.
Yeah.
Nice.
And the temperature in LA in December is about 65.
It's a little chilly,
with the heated pool though, look out, man. So also the Dallas game, which is on Thanksgiving. If you don't feel like cooking and you want to travel, I've got a couple spots open for that. As I told you last episode, that's almost sold out, and I think I've got maybe five seats available.
Damn.
So hey, talk to me. But hey guys, once again, thank you guys for listening. Thank you to our new subscribers, because we had a couple new subscribers, and thank you to everyone who's listening, who's sharing. We need it. It helps us out a lot. You'll see the difference coming up this season. So you guys rep it hard, or you don't rep it at all. Rally Captain, Tailgate Ted will be out.